Eli Drake was tired of everything. Not just the sleepless nights, not just the pain in his legs or the dull ache in his chest. It was the kind of tiredness that came from wandering too long, from losing too many things that mattered. He had drifted across the stars like a leaf caught in an endless wind, never finding a place that felt like home. Every world he landed on, every settlement he worked in, he told himself, just one more stop. But it was never enough. Peace always slipped through his fingers like smoke. He was once a soldier, one of the many humans sent to help in wars that were not theirs. He saw too many faces disappear under fire, and too many promises fade with the smoke of burning cities. After the wars ended, nobody cared about men like him anymore. The galaxy moved on, but he didn't. He carried the ghosts of every place he had been to, and every night when he looked at the stars, he felt smaller and lonelier. When his ship finally began to fail, part of him didn't even care. The engine's pulse weakened, lights flickered like tired eyes, and the navigation screen went dark halfway through his last jump. He only had enough fuel for one more landing. He scrolled through the charts and picked a quiet world, Vetra 9, a small green moon far from trade routes and wars. It had no major colonies, no markets, no soldiers, just forests, rivers, and peace. That was enough for him, he whispered to himself as he entered the coordinates. Just a place to rest. That's all I want. The ship broke through the clouds of Vetra 9 and descended into twilight. The sky glowed a soft violet, and strange floating lights drifted like fireflies. The forest below looked alive, breathing with soft silver mist that curled around the treetops. He landed near a quiet stream, the ground soft under his boots as he stepped out. The air was different, cool, clean, carrying a faint sweet smell like flowers after rain. For the first time in years, he took a deep breath that didn't hurt. He set up a small camp beside the ship, building a fire from the fallen branches nearby. The flames danced softly, their light reflecting off the metallic surface of his old gear. He didn't think about tomorrow. He didn't care if anyone came looking for him. All he wanted was to sit there, close his eyes, and forget the sound of engines, gunfire, and shouting. Just silence. Just the sound of water and wind. As the night deepened, the stars came out one by one. They were different here, bigger, closer, shining with gentle colors. He looked up at them and wondered if this was how peace felt, quiet, distant, and fragile. He thought about the people he'd lost, the friends he'd left behind, and whispered their names to the fire. No one answered, but somehow he felt that was okay. He stayed awake for hours, watching the flames fade. His mind began to drift, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel afraid to sleep. His head lowered, his body relaxed, and the forest seemed to hum around him, soft, alive, almost like a lullaby. Then suddenly he felt something. A presence. Eli opened his eyes slowly. The firelight flickered, and through the mist he saw a shape. Someone, or something, was standing at the edge of the trees. At first he thought it was his imagination, a trick of tired eyes. But then the shape moved closer, graceful and silent. The mist parted to reveal a figure, tall and slender, skin faintly glowing silver under the starlight. Her hair shimmered like threads of moonlight, and her eyes were a deep, calm blue, like oceans untouched by storms. She didn't speak at first. She just looked at him as if she was seeing something she had been waiting for all her life. Eli's hand moved toward his sidearm out of old habit, but she raised one hand slowly, not in threat but in peace. Her voice came soft and melodic, carrying the rhythm of a song he didn't know. "You shouldn't be here alone, traveler." Her words made him freeze. There was no anger, no fear, only concern. Eli cleared his throat. "I'm just passing through," he said quietly. "I needed a place to rest." When she heard that, her expression changed. Her lips parted, and for a moment she looked like she might cry. "To rest," she whispered almost to herself. "You seek peace." Eli didn't understand why she looked so moved by such simple words. But before he could say anything more, she took a slow step forward, her gaze steady, glowing softly in the dark. "Then," she said, her voice trembling but full of strange certainty, "you are the one my heart has chosen." Eli blinked, confused. "Chosen? For what?" She smiled faintly, almost sadly, as if the answer hurt her as much as it comforted her. "For forever." The mist swirled around them, the forest silent, the stars watching, and Eli, the tired wanderer who had only wanted to rest, realized that his life had just changed forever. Eli didn't move. He stood there staring at the silver-skinned girl as the mist drifted around them like a dream. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, reflecting the firelight. There was something unreal about her, something too gentle for this wild place. She looked fragile and powerful at the same time, like a storm trapped inside glass. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The forest around them stayed silent, as if even the wind was listening. Finally, Eli broke the silence. "Listen," he said carefully, his voice low. "I don't know what you mean by chosen. I just came here to rest. That's all." She tilted her head, studying him as though trying to understand a puzzle. Her long white hair shimmered as she stepped closer. "You came to rest," she repeated softly. "You came seeking peace, not conquest. That is rare among travelers." Eli gave a tired half smile. "Peace isn't easy to find out there." He pointed toward the stars. "Too many wars? Too many people who've forgotten what quiet feels like." The girl's expression softened. "You sound like one who has seen too much." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence between them told her everything. Then she did something strange. She knelt down in front of him. Slowly, deliberately, she pressed her right hand to the ground and her left hand to her chest. Her voice became a whisper that trembled with emotion. "I am Lyra of Vetra," she said, "and by the ancient vow of my people, I claim you as my life-bonded one." Eli blinked, startled. "You're what?" She looked up at him, eyes shining. "My bonded one. The one my heart and spirit will follow until the end." He took a small step back. "Whoa, hold on. I think there's a misunderstanding here." But Lyra only smiled. A soft, sad smile. "There are no mistakes in the choosing. The bond happens when a heart from beyond our world seeks rest beneath our sky. The first to find them becomes their keeper. It is an old promise, older than our people's cities." Eli rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it. "You're saying, because I landed here and you found me, we're married?" She blinked, unfamiliar with the word. "Married?" he sighed. "It means being together forever." Her face brightened a little. "Then yes, that is what I mean." Eli let out a long breath and sat down on a nearby rock. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He'd fought pirates, soldiers, and storms, but this was something else. "You don't even know me," he said finally. "I know your heart," she replied simply. He looked up, meeting her eyes. "And what does my heart say?" Lyra stepped closer until she stood just a few feet away. "It says you are tired of pain. It says you carry the weight of many ghosts. It says you want to stop running." Her words hit him harder than any bullet ever could. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He just stared at her. This strange, glowing girl who looked at him as if she could see right through all the walls he'd built around himself. Finally, he muttered, "Even if that's true, you don't have to tie yourself to me. I don't want to be anyone's burden." Lyra shook her head gently. "You are not a burden. You are a song I did not know I was waiting to hear." Something in her tone made Eli's chest tighten. He wanted to say she was wrong, that she didn't understand what kind of man he was. A broken soldier, a wanderer with nothing left to give. But when she smiled, that thought faded. It was the kind of smile that made the world seem a little lighter. Lyra looked around his small camp. Her eyes lingered on the flickering fire, the empty food packs, the old weapon beside him. "You live like someone ready to disappear," she said softly. "But I will not let you fade." Eli looked away. "You can't stop someone from disappearing." "Yes, I can," she said firmly. Her voice, though gentle, carried strength. "Because when we bond, our lives become one. If you fade, so do I." He turned to her, truly seeing her for the first time. She was serious, not pretending, not playing some strange alien trick. There was devotion in her eyes, pure and unshaken. He didn't understand her customs, her vows, or her world. But in that moment, he understood something simple. She believed in this bond completely. And for some reason, that belief scared him more than any war ever had. Eli stood up, brushing dust from his hands. "I can't promise anything," he said quietly. "Not love, not forever. I just need to breathe again." Lyra nodded, her expression calm. "Then breathe. I will stand beside you until you do." She turned away then, walking toward the edge of the forest. The mist wrapped around her, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Before disappearing among the trees, she spoke one last time. "You may not understand now, human traveler, but someday, when your heart finds peace, you will know. It was my name it was calling. And then she was gone, leaving Eli alone by the fire. But somehow the forest didn't feel empty anymore. Eli woke up the next morning with sunlight warming his face and birds singing in the trees above. For a brief, peaceful moment, he almost forgot about the strange girl from last night. He thought maybe she was just a dream, something his tired mind had created out of loneliness and starlight. But when he turned his head, he saw footprints near the fire. Small, delicate, and fresh, so she was real. He rubbed his eyes, sighed, and whispered to himself, "Well, this just got complicated." He spent the morning checking his ship. The damage was worse than he thought. One of the fuel lines had cracked and the navigation system was completely dead. Even if he wanted to leave, he couldn't. He was stranded. Part of him cursed his bad luck. Another part, a small, quiet one, wondered if maybe fate had done this on purpose. He was repairing the ship's side panel when he heard soft footsteps behind him. He didn't turn. He already knew who it was. "I brought you food," Lyra said gently. Eli wiped the grease from his hands and looked over his shoulder. She was standing there with a small woven basket filled with strange glowing fruits. The colors shimmered, pale blue, pink, and silver. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "It is my duty to care for you," Eli groaned. "We need to talk about that." She tilted her head, curious. "About what?" "About this bond thing," he said, waving his hand vaguely. "I appreciate what you did last night, but I think you've got the wrong idea about me." Lyra walked closer, her silver hair catching the sunlight. "There are no wrong ideas," she said softly. "The bond cannot be mistaken." He sighed, lowering the tool in his hand. "Lyra, listen. Where I come from, people choose who they're with. It's not decided by some ritual or rule, it's personal." She looked hurt just for a moment, then straightened her posture. "Do you not believe in fate?" "I stopped believing in that a long time ago," he said quietly. "The universe doesn't choose for us, we do. And I've made enough wrong choices to know I shouldn't be anyone's partner." Lyra looked at him for a long time. Really looked. Her blue eyes shimmered, full of quiet sadness. "You say you are broken," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I see no brokenness in you. Only someone who has been forgotten by the stars." Eli turned away, pretending to focus on the ship again. "You don't know what I've done." "I don't need to," she replied softly. "I know what you are now, tired, yes, but kind. You didn't harm me when you could have. You didn't lie. You spoke truth. That is enough for my heart." Her words made something twist deep inside him. No one had spoken to him like that in years, with faith, with warmth. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she didn't understand the darkness he carried. But the way she looked at him, it made his chest ache. Finally, he shook his head. "Lyra, I can't be what you want me to be. I'm not a savior. I'm not special. I just want to rest." "Then rest," she said. "And I will watch over you." He sighed again, frustrated and strangely touched. "You're not listening." "I am," she said quietly. "You are the one who doesn't want to hear your own heart." Eli turned toward her sharply, ready to argue, but the look in her eyes silenced him. It wasn't anger or stubbornness, it was belief. A deep, unshaken belief that somehow he was meant to be there. He sat down on a rock and looked at her helplessly. "What happens now?" Lyra knelt beside him, setting the basket between them. "Now we live," she said simply. "You heal. You learn this world. And I stay by your side." Eli ran a hand through his hair, defeated but too tired to fight anymore. "You're not leaving, are you?" She smiled. Not the smile of someone playing a game, but of someone who had already made a promise. "No, Eli Drake, my place is here. With you." He stared at her for a long time. There was something both comforting and terrifying about her calmness. She wasn't forcing him, yet she didn't give him a choice either. It was as if the universe had made its decision, and she simply accepted it. Finally, he picked up one of the glowing fruits and took a bite. It tasted sweet, strangely familiar, like something from a forgotten childhood memory. Lyra watched him, her expression soft, almost shy. "I told you," she whispered. "This world will not hurt you." Eli chewed slowly, looking out into the silver forest. "We'll see about that," he muttered. But deep inside, though he didn't admit it, something in him had already started to change. That night, when he sat by the fire again, Lyra sat across from him, humming a quiet song that sounded like the wind. And even though he told himself he wanted to be alone, he found himself listening. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. Days passed like soft rain on stone, slowly, quietly, changing everything without noise. Eli had expected the silence of Vatra 9 to weigh on him, to make him restless, but it didn't. The forest seemed alive in a way that felt kind. Every morning, silver light filtered through the tall trees, painting the ground with shimmering patterns. Rivers sang softly. Birds with glassy feathers fluttered between branches, and strange glowing insects floated like living lanterns. Lyra was always there, not demanding, not talking too much, just there. Sometimes she sat by the stream, her long white hair drifting like silk in the wind, singing songs in a language Eli couldn't understand. Other times she worked quietly, gathering fruit, repairing his torn clothing with delicate glowing thread, or carving symbols on smooth stones she placed around the camp. When Eli asked what those symbols meant, she smiled and said, "They keep sadness away." He didn't believe in such things, but somehow since she placed them, his dreams had grown softer. The nightmares that used to wake him, the screams, the smoke, the faces of fallen friends, began to fade into quiet shadows. Lyra never asked about his past. She never questioned the scars on his body, or the way he sometimes stared at the fire too long. She simply accepted him as he was, tired, broken, and human. And that simple acceptance was something Eli had never known before. One afternoon, they sat by the river. Lyra was weaving flowers into a crown, while Eli tried to fix an old communicator from his ship. He didn't really need it to work. There was no one left to call. But fixing things gave his hands purpose. "You fix things that no longer speak," Lyra said suddenly. Watching him with calm curiosity, Eli smiled faintly. "Maybe I just like pretending I can still fix something." Lyra placed the flower crown gently on his head, her fingers light as feathers. "Maybe it is not pretending," she said. "Maybe it is your heart learning how to mend." He laughed quietly. "You talk like a poet. And you listen like someone afraid to believe," she replied. Her words stayed with him long after the laughter faded. At night, when they sat by the fire, Lyra would hum softly, not to him but to the forest, as if the world itself needed comfort. Her songs didn't have words, yet they carried a feeling of home, of forgiveness, of peace. Eli found himself listening every night until sleep took him. Sometimes, when he woke up in the middle of the night, he saw her sitting under the moonlight, looking up at the stars with her hands folded on her knees. She looked like part of the forest, quiet, glowing, eternal. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Eli asked her, "Why do you do all this for me, Lyra?" "You don't even know if I'll stay," she smiled gently. "Because I do not help you to make you stay. I help you because I already know you will want to." Eli looked at her, speechless. There was no arrogance in her tone, only calm certainty, like she was stating a truth written in the stars. He looked away, poking at the fire. "You really believe I belong here?" Lyra's voice was soft but firm. "Your spirit is tired of traveling. It has been calling for a place to rest. And when your ship broke the sky of my world, I felt it, like hearing my own heartbeat from far away." Her words made his chest tighten. He didn't want to believe in fate or bonds, yet something inside him, something small and fragile, whispered that maybe she was right. For the first time since he'd left Earth, Eli began to feel still. The silence didn't hurt anymore. The air didn't feel heavy. The loneliness that used to sit in his heart began to fade, replaced by something softer, something that felt almost like peace. One afternoon, Lyra brought him a crystal-like stone that shimmered faintly in her hands. "This is called Solra," she said. "We use it to store memories. If you hold it and think of a moment, it will remember." Eli took it carefully, his rough fingers brushing against her smooth ones. "And what do you want me to put in it?" he asked. Lyra looked into his eyes. "The first moment you felt safe again." He froze. Safe. It had been so long since that word meant anything. But as he looked at her soft smile, her calm eyes, the quiet forest around them, he realized he already had that moment. It was now. Eli nodded slowly and closed his hand around the stone. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra's smile deepened, and for the first time in years, He smiled too, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. That night as he lay by the fire, listening to the sound of Lyra's song and the river's whisper, Eli Drake, the man who had once run from every world, finally stopped running. He didn't say it out loud. He didn't need to. But deep inside he knew the truth. For the first time in a very long time, he wasn't alone anymore. The peace did not last. It never does, not forever. It began one quiet night when the wind suddenly changed. The forest, usually calm and full of soft sounds, fell silent. Even the glowing insects disappeared. Eli noticed it first, the strange electric hum in the air, the uneasy stillness that made his skin crawl. He stepped out of the camp and looked up at the sky. The twin moons were half hidden by clouds that glowed red at the edges. It looked unnatural and like fire behind smoke. Lyra came to his side, her eyes wide, her silver hair fluttering in the sharp wind. "The sky," she whispered. "It should not bleed," Eli frowned. "What does that mean?" Her voice trembled. "It means they have come." "Who?" Before she could answer, the air split open with a deep roar. Far beyond the forest, several dark shapes fell through the clouds. Ships heavy and fast, their engines glowing a hateful orange. They were not like Eli's ship. These were war machines. Raiders. Eli's heart sank. He had seen those ships before, on other worlds. Scavengers who hunted the weak, burning and stealing from anyone who couldn't fight back. He clenched his fists. "They're raiders," he said bitterly. "They go wherever peace exists. To destroy it." Lyra's hands shook slightly. "My people do not fight anymore. We have no armies, no weapons." "Then they'll tear through this place like paper," Eli said grimly. She turned to him, her voice breaking. "What do we do?" Eli hesitated. He didn't want to fight again. He had promised himself that part of his life was over, that he'd never pick up a weapon unless it was to protect himself. But when he looked at Lyra, standing there scared but trying to stay strong, he knew he couldn't just stand by. He grabbed his old blaster from the crate and checked its charge. "We survive," he said. "Together." Lyra looked at him, eyes full of fear and something deeper, trust. "If you fight," she said softly, "then so will I." Lyra, but she was already holding her crystal staff, the same one she always carried when walking through the woods. Its surface pulsed with faint blue light, and for the first time Eli realized it wasn't just a tool, it was something powerful. The ground trembled as the raiders' ships landed nearby. The sky flared with flames as metallic pods dropped into the forest, crushing trees under their weight. Eli could see figures emerging, armored, shouting in a language he half recognized. He crouched beside Lyra behind a fallen log. "Stay down," he whispered. But Lyra didn't move. She stood up slowly, lifting her staff high. "This is our world," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "They will not take it." Eli grabbed her arm. "You can't—" Before he could finish, the staff flared with bright blue light. A pulse of energy rippled through the forest, bending the air. The trees seemed to come alive, their roots twisting, their branches lowering like arms ready to strike. The raiders shouted in confusion as the forest itself began to fight back. Eli stared in shock as Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, her voice echoing with strange words. Lightning burst from the sky, striking the ground near the invaders. The air smelled of rain and fire. She looked like something ancient, something born of the world itself. He wanted to protect her, but she was already protecting him. Still, Eli couldn't just watch. He fired his blaster, hitting one of the raiders as they tried to approach. His soldier's instincts returned, sharp and clear. He moved through the shadows, covering Lyra's flank, firing at anything that came near her. The battle was chaos. Light, sound, and fear crashing together. The forest burned and healed itself at the same time, as if refusing to die. When the last raider fell, the silence returned, heavy and broken. Smoke curled through the air. The trees stood blackened but alive. Eli turned and saw Lyra on her knees, her staff dim, her breathing weak. He ran to her and caught her before she collapsed. "Lyra!" She opened her eyes slowly, her voice faint. "The forest. It is safe now." "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice shaking. "You could have died." Her lips curved into a small smile. "If I must die protecting the one my spirit chose, then it is not death. It is peace. Eli felt his throat tighten. He pressed her hand to his chest. Don't talk like that. I'm not losing you. Lyra's eyes shimmered with tears, silver tears that glowed faintly in the dark. You fought beside me, she whispered. That means our bond is sealed. Eli stared at her, confused and frightened. What do you mean? She smiled weakly. You chose me in battle. The bond is complete now. Our hearts are one, by life or by death. Eli couldn't find words. He just held her close, feeling her pulse slow against his chest. The forest whispered softly around them, alive, watching, waiting. As the smoke cleared, Eli realized something deep and painful. He hadn't fought for survival. He had fought for her, and for the first time in years his heart wasn't empty. It was breaking, but it was alive again. The battle had ended, but the world did not return to peace right away. The air still smelled of smoke and ash. The trees whispered in low, tired voices. The twin moons shone dimly through the drifting clouds as if mourning what had been lost. Eli sat beside Lyra near the old stone spring, a place where clear water bubbled from the earth. He had built a small fire to keep them warm. Lyra's head rested against his shoulder, her skin pale, her energy nearly gone. The blue glow in her staff had faded to a dull shimmer. She hadn't spoken much since the fight. Her body trembled now and then, and every time she coughed, Eli's heart twisted painfully. He had cleaned the small wounds on her arms, covered her with his jacket, and stayed close. He couldn't bear to leave her side, not even for a moment. Try to drink, he said softly, holding a metal cup to her lips. She sipped the water weakly and gave him a tired smile. You care too much, human. Eli shook his head. Not enough. If I did, I wouldn't have let you fight alone. Her gaze softened. You did not let me. You stood beside me. You protected me. That is what my people call devotion. He looked down at the flickering firelight. Devotion, huh? Where I come from, it's just love. The words seemed to echo between them. Lyra blinked slowly, her silver eyes shimmering. Love, she repeated, tasting the word as if it were foreign. Your word has many meanings. Which one do you mean? Eli exhaled shakily. The kind that makes you want to keep someone safe. The kind that hurts when they're in pain. The kind that makes you forget everything else. Lyra watched him quietly, her expression unreadable. The firelight danced across her face, making her look almost ethereal. Then, she whispered, I know that feeling too. Eli's breath caught. You do? She nodded slowly. When I first saw you broken and lost, I felt something stir in me. My people believe in the life thread, a connection that binds two souls. It cannot be chosen. It simply is. He remembered the day they met, her strange eyes, the way she looked at him like he was something precious instead of just another lost traveler. So when you said I was your lifelong partner, he murmured. You meant this life thread thing? Yes, she said softly. Once the thread appears, it never fades. It means our lives are tied, even if we walk apart. Eli looked into the fire. His heart felt heavy. But Lyra, I'm not from here. I don't belong to your world. I don't even know if I can stay. Her fingers brushed his hand, light, trembling, warm. Do you wish to leave? He didn't answer right away. The truth was tangled inside him. He had come to this planet just looking for rest and a place to disappear, to forget his old life. But now the thought of leaving made his chest ache. He looked at her, fragile yet fierce, alien yet so full of heart. And he knew the answer he didn't want to admit. No, he said finally. I don't want to leave. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then the stars have already decided. She leaned closer, her forehead resting gently against his. Among my people, she whispered, we seal our bond not with words but with truth. Speak your truth, Eli. He swallowed hard. The words burned in his throat. I was a soldier, he began. I've seen too much death. I lost everyone I ever cared about. I thought if I stayed alone, I'd be safe from losing anyone again. But you ruined that, she smiled faintly. Then I am glad I did. I don't know what the future holds, he continued, his voice shaking. But I know this, I'd rather face it with you than spend another day alone. Lyra closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek, glowing faintly like liquid silver. Then we are one, she whispered. In heart, in soul, in light, the wind stirred, carrying the scent of rain and earth. The stars above shimmered brighter as if listening. Eli pulled her gently into his arms, holding her close as she rested against his chest. Her breathing slowed, soft and peaceful. For the first time in years, his heart felt whole. No longer running, no longer empty. The night was quiet except for the crackle of the fire and the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against his. And under those strange, foreign stars, Eli realized something simple and powerful. He hadn't found a place to rest. He had found a reason to stay. Morning came slowly. The first light of dawn spread across the wounded forest, touching the trees with gold. Smoke still drifted in the air from the battle, but the land was healing. Small green shoots pushed up through the blackened earth. Life, as always, was finding a way. Eli woke to the sound of birds. Soft, strange songs he had never heard before. Lyra still slept beside him, wrapped in his jacket, her breathing calm. For the first time since the crash, peace truly felt real. He sat there for a long while, just watching her. Her face looked calm, almost glowing in the early light. He had never believed in destiny, but now, looking at her, he wasn't so sure anymore. When she finally opened her eyes, she smiled faintly. "You did not leave," she whispered. "I told you," Eli said gently. "I'm not going anywhere." Lyra sat up slowly, wincing a little. "The forest told me you watched over me all night." He chuckled softly. "The forest talks too much." She smiled wider, the warmth returning to her eyes. "It tells only the truth." For a while they simply sat there in silence, and the fire crackling low, the air cool and clean. It felt almost like the world had forgiven them both for surviving. But Lyra's smile faded after a moment. She looked toward the horizon, where smoke still curled in the distance. "The raiders will come again," she said quietly. "They always do. This world has no army, no shield. Only life. Fragile life." Eli followed her gaze, then looked at his hands. Scarred, strong, steady. The hands of a man who had once sworn never to fight again. But he understood something now. Sometimes peace isn't about running away. It's about protecting what gives you peace. "Then we'll be ready next time," he said. Lyra turned to him, surprised. "You mean to stay?" He nodded slowly. "I was tired of fighting for people who didn't care. But you make it mean something again. If I can help you protect this world, protect you, then maybe that's what I was meant to do." Her eyes shimmered like morning dew. "You would give up your stars for me?" Eli smiled softly. "You are my stars now." Lyra blinked and tears filled her eyes. She reached out and touched his face gently, her thumb brushing against his cheek. "You speak as if you were born from the same light." He caught her hand and held it to his chest. "Maybe I was just waiting for you to show me how to live again." The words hung between them, simple and true. No grand promises, no oaths, just two souls who had finally found home in each other. Later that day, Eli helped repair what the raiders had destroyed. He worked beside Lyra's people, tall, graceful beings who had once feared him but now watched him with quiet respect. They saw the way Lyra looked at him and how he looked at her, not as savior or stranger, but as something equal, something sacred. He taught them how to build defenses, how to make traps from metal scraps. And in return, they taught him their songs, songs of growth and light, songs that healed the land. At night, when the stars returned, Eli and Lyra would walk together through the glowing woods. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. They didn't need to. The silence between them was full of meaning. One night, as they stood at the edge of the valley, Lyra spoke softly. "My people believe that when two souls are bound, their hearts create a new path in the stars, one that never fades." Eli looked up. The sky was wide and endless, filled with billions of lights. "Then maybe," he said, smiling, "there's a new one shining for us right now." Lyra leaned against him. "Would you like to see it?" "I already do," he whispered. "Every time I look at you." The wind carried their laughter through the trees. It was soft, pure, like something the world itself wanted to remember. In the days that followed, life began again. Flowers bloomed where fire had burned. The rivers ran clear. The people rebuilt, stronger than before. And Eli, the man who once just wanted a place to rest, found something far greater than rest. He found purpose. He found home. He found love that reached beyond stars and language. And when Lyra took his hand, leading him through the glowing forest, their hearts beat as one, a rhythm that would echo across the galaxy, whispered by winds and remembered by the stars. Because sometimes, a tired soul doesn't need a place to rest. It just needs someone worth staying for.